Dear national member federations, dear table hockey players and leaders, welcome to the annual New Year speech from the President of ITHF. 2024 is definitely a year I first of all will remember for an excellent tournament in Valmiera, Latvia. The European Championships 2024 was organized here. It was a great place, and Valmiera in fact is having everything we need and want for a big international championship like the European Championship. I will give Valmiera my biggest recommendation, and I will get back to that topic later. In 2025 we'll go to Umeå. Umeå is a legendary place of international and national Swedish table hockey. Umeå-ligan is perhaps the most interesting and definitely the most traditional league in the world. It has been organized for so many years that we don't even remember it. Therefore, I look forward to visiting Umeå. We can of course always travel there as tourists, but to go there to an international tournament, and this time the World Championships, that is really great. I look forward to that. And I'm sure that the Swedish Table Hockey Federation, Svenska Båthockeyförbundet, will do their very best to organize the best event ever. After the World Championship in Umeå, the next World Championship will be in 2027. Earlier this month I had a pleasant speak with the president of the Latvian Table Hockey Federation, Latvia Galda Hockey Federacija, Romans Blumentals, and he told me that Valmiera is ready to host the World Championship 2027. I was very happy about this, because very often we have seen European and World Championships being organized in big cities, for example, the capitals. That is very normal because it's easy to travel here. But Valmiera had everything, and I believe with the help from Latvia Galda Hockey Federacija that the World Championship 2027 can be even better than the European Championships 2024. Therefore, I will give my biggest recommendation when we should vote about finding a host of the World Championships 2027. This will happen later here in 2025 at the Ordinary Delegates Conference in spring. We also need to find a host of the European Championships 2026. That is a little bit more difficult for us. There are many federations, like my own in Denmark, which is right now not having the capacity and number of people who will commit themselves for such a great event to organize the European Championships. So therefore we are struggling a little bit finding the host of the European Championships 2026. Therefore, if you are sitting out there in your national federation or in your club, and you are considering, oh, perhaps we could do it. It could be very interesting. What should we do? What is it really? Then I would recommend you to write to me or to other members of the Executive Committee of ITHF. You can find me through mail to president@ithf.info, and we would be very happy to answer your questions or perhaps even receive your application for hosting the European Championships 2026. After Riga Cup, which is definitely one of the most important tournaments of the world in the World Table Hockey Tour, we had a debate in the Executive Committee of ITHF and also with other people about tournament systems. I have always been a big fan of diversity. During my many years of table hockey, I have been traveling to, I would say, nearly every destination to play different kind of tournaments, and I have enjoyed it very much. Also because it's funny to play in a different system. I still believe that the World Tour should be a place where we should have the possibility to organize tournaments with different kind of tournament systems. However, it's also important in the biggest tournaments like Czech Open, Riga Cup, Swedish Masters, etc., that we have some kind of consistency. To play against a player in a basic group, to win some matches and finish, for example, number 1, 2, and 3, and then realize that after the basic group it doesn't really matter. You should just qualify for the next stage, and then we will begin all over again with seeding from the world ranking. I do not think that's the best system. After all, we had quite an intense debate about this topic, and I believe that we should continue this debate and make some decisions during the next delegates conference to find out what should the tournament system be like in the World and European Championships. How should it be in the biggest tournaments like the Super Series. But again, I would also like to state that in the other tournaments, I would welcome very much that organizers would say, oh, we would like to try some other thing. They should, of course, tell us about that when applying for the tournament and putting the tournament in the tournament calendar. I still remember when I, back in the Danish World Tour in Trophy of Denmark 2013, had the pleasure to play in the final against Václav Pickel from Česká republika, Czech Republic, and we played all matches to a goal distance of 9 goals. Perhaps that was a little too much, but again, it's funny to try different kind of systems. That is something we will also remember. So I welcome this, but in the biggest tournaments, I believe we should have some kind of consistency in the Super Series. This spring, 2025, is also an uneven year, which means we should have elections to the legal committee and the executive committee of ITHF, the bodies of ITHF. Therefore, we will ask your national member federations to start to consider and debate whether you are having a candidate for one of these bodies. There's a little bit difference between the two bodies. In the executive committee, we make a lot of decisions about what is going on right now, receiving a lot of mails, debating them in our messenger group. In the legal committee, there's not so much work, but the legal committee is important if there is some kind of conflict, for example, inside a country or between a country and ITHF. So therefore, we can only recommend that if you are ready to do a job the next 2 years for international table hockey, then you should remind yourself to be a candidate. And of course, talk with your national federations about this before candidating so you can coordinate it. And then remember, to be a part of the executive committee or the legal committee of ITHF is completely free and unpaid. It's a voluntary job. There is no payment in it. During my 20 years in the work for ITHF, the International Table Hockey Federation, many years in the executive committee and 14 years as a president, there has been some kind of crisis. I still remember when we, back in 2012 and 2014, suddenly didn't have an organizer of the European Championships. There was a country who was supposed to organize these championships, but they couldn't do it. This was sad. It is 10 and 12 years ago. Latvia both times helped us to solve this problem. Even though it is 12 and 10 years ago, I would like once again to say, paldies. It was very helpful of you to assist us in the International Table Hockey Federations. I also remember, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a sad situation. And the thing we wanted most of all in ITHF was to organize as many countries as possible with the safety which was necessary. But when national federations are telling us, informing us about the national guidelines, they are not allowed to organize tournaments, then there was no possibility to organize these tournaments. We had to cancel a lot of tournaments. That was sad, because what we wanted most of all was to organize tournaments and to have a World Table Hockey Tour. At that time, we were even accused to be worse than the COVID-19 pandemic. That was quite funny, I have to say. But it was a crisis. The worst crisis of them all is definitely the present situation in the eastern part of Europe, meaning by a decision made by the national member federations in an extraordinary delegates conference that players from 2 countries cannot participate in their main interest in their sport, that is players from Russia and Belarus. When making such kind of decisions like these, it can never be done by the executive committee of ITHF. We do not have that kind of power. We need to ask the national member federations, what do you want? And it was a clear yes, both in 2022 and in 2023, we want some sanctions. Therefore, we voted about it, and the sanctions were decided by a clear majority that players from Russia and Belarus could not participate in tournaments during the conflict in Ukraine. It was a clear decision both times. Therefore, it will always be up to the national member federations to decide what should be done in this matter. It cannot be 5 people in a committee working voluntary and unpaid in their spare time who can make these decisions. However, in 2025, I think we should use some time both on an international level, but also when we have our meetings, our board meetings in the national member federations, to discuss what could we do for players who are not a part of this conflict, but who have table hockey as their main interest. I have been traveling to Belarus back in 2018, and in the quarterfinal I had a chance to play against one of the most legendary persons from international table hockey, Andrei Knashuk. He is a person who has been helping us a lot of times in the executive committee by taking a lot of great photos, which means when you go home exhausted after a big tournament, then 4 or 5 days later you are checking out all the pictures and you say, wow, that was really something. I met all those kind of friends and we played so many great matches. People who helped table hockey. Andrei Knashuk is not to blame for the situation in Ukraine. Vitaly Skorobogatov is not to be blamed for the situation in Ukraine. Of course, with a clear decision from the national member federations, players from Russia and Belarus cannot participate in tournaments. That is a decision made by the national member federations. But perhaps we could consider that some people could participate without representing their countries. There could be some neutral profiles in the world ranking while this is going on. That is definitely something to consider, because if this conflict is going on 10 years, which I definitely do not hope, then some people can be stolen 10 years of their main interest, table hockey. That is definitely not a thing that makes my heart warm when sitting here and speaking to you. So consider whether we have some options to do things in a different way. That will only be up to you in the national member federations. With these words here from Aalborg, Denmark, I want to wish all of you the very best for the year to come, 2025. Happy New Year. Godt nytår.